Okay, I promise this is my last video on our 9-day cruise to New England and Canada. And this first shot here was taken as the ship approached St. John in Canada. And I kind of like this shot here of this gentleman just looking out. And I underexposed several stops to get this effect. And I know what some of you may be thinking, oh God, this is boring, just like looking at someone's travel pictures in the old days. You know, you'd go to their home and they would show you their slides. And all these pictures here, with some exceptions, and I'll point them out, were taken with the 24 to 200 f4 to 6.3 zoom on my Nikon Z8. And these pictures here, those smokestacks, were from the Irving Pulp and Paper Company based in St. John. And they manufacture a lot of the paper products, I believe toilet tissue, paper towels, and facial tissue for Walmart. So this is the old stone church. And we took one of those hop on, hop off buses again, like we did in Boston. And I took these pictures actually from the bus. And since we were going to be in St. John for 2 days, what I decided to do was just go on the bus with the rest of the people we were traveling with and then determine what I wanted to go back to. And so that's what I did. And then the next day I went out walking to some of these locations. So here's a shot. We were waiting. We made one of the stops and we were waiting to drop some people off, pick some people up. And I noticed this reflection in the mirror, and I just liked this shot. This woman, I guess she was a little tired or a little bored, and she was yawning. Now, this spot here is something called the Reversing Falls Rapids. It's a viewing point of this phenomenon, and you can see the ships in the background. And what happens is daily, the Bay of Fundy, the tides from the Bay of Fundy and the flow of the St. John River kind of meet, and it causes this reversing series of rapids and whirlpools. And as the tide rises, and this happens twice daily, the bay's water forces the river to flow in reverse. So it's kind of unique. I believe it's the only spot in the world where this happens. So the next morning, I got up early and just went out and explored St. John on foot. And I think that's the best way to get to see a city. And I switched to my 14 to 30 for this shot and the next several shots. And this is a church. The Church of St. Andrew and St. David was built in 1815. And this is at 14 millimeters. There were some overhead wires, and I shot this right from the front steps of the church because it was a very narrow street. And here's some houses along that same block. And I just continued along, keeping the 14 to 30 on the camera because I noticed another church in the distance and I was headed towards that. And as many of you know, I like to shoot architecture, whether houses or skyscrapers or churches. And then I noticed this barber shop. And obviously, they have barber poles in Canada as well, but you don't see them too much in the US anymore. And here is the Anglican Trinity Church, which was built in 1877. Now, I saw this steeple from the deck of the ship, and I had to check it out. And unfortunately, it was just a white sky on that morning. And here's a tighter shot. A lot of detail in this, and this is at 25 millimeters. So in Canada, they have dollar stores as well. So I just continued along, and it was a foggy morning. So I was happy to get this shot. This was at a distance. This I was shooting at 180 millimeters. I didn't make it to this church because it was down below from where I was. And then I noticed this reflection. I like shooting reflections. And this is what was reflected in those windows. And I'm always trying to find something a little different, shapes and colors and various things, rather than just your standard pictures. And here's that stone church that I had shot the day before from the bus. Again, this was built in 1822. Unfortunately, again, the sky just wasn't great for pictures like that. So I just continued on, and I love street photography. Again, as many of you may know who've seen some of my other videos. So I just continued along as I was heading back towards the ship. And it's very hilly in St. John. And on my way out, I was walking uphill. And then on my way back to the ship, it was downhill. And that was difficult as well, going down. It was really steep. And so I had to take my time and be careful. But here's another shot of that Trinity Church from behind. And you could see it was a little foggy with the steeple, and this was a mural right around the corner. So I headed back to the ship, continuing to shoot. And you could see here the how that street drops as as you're walking down. And so the next day we were headed to Halifax, Nova Scotia. So it was back to the ship, and we're going to see some shots from Halifax. And this last shot here in St. John was from the deck of the ship. Okay, so it was on to Halifax, Nova Scotia, the final stop on our cruise, and this is day 7. As coming into Halifax, there was a lighthouse, and I love lighthouses. I always try to find them wherever I go. And again, this is from the ship as we were docking. And then I got off the ship. We're only going to be in Halifax from 10:30 in the morning till 8 p.m. at night. So got off the ship and took a walk around along the dock, and a lot going on right there by the area where the ships are docked. Restaurants, activities, and these kids were not supposed to be climbing this sculpture. It was a warning, but they did. And no, I didn't see anybody fall. Now, I love bagpipes. I always told my wife when I die, I want bagpipes. It probably won't happen. But anyway, so there was that gentleman playing the bagpipes. And as you could see and hear, it was a very windy day. So here are some fall trees. I didn't see much fall color in Canada. I expected to see more, but didn't see much. So again, my normal thing to do is just walk around, see what I can find, shoot buildings and other things. And this is the town clock. It's high up. A long walk up a street to get to this point, and I walked up those steps you could see in the lower center of the picture. And just to show you how high it is, I took this shot looking down towards the waterfront. So you could see it's very steep, just like St. John. And here's a shot of that building from behind. And again, just continued on my journey, seeing what I could find. This guard did not move. And here we have old and new. In the foreground, we have the old buildings. Now, this was an interesting shot. I just saw this gentleman holding the stop sign for road construction. I liked the way the cones looked. And then looking at the picture later, and I zoomed in, I saw this gentleman sitting there in the background. So sometimes you don't see something when you initially take the shot, but later on, when you got the pictures on your computer and you zoom in, you see something. And this was at 80 millimeters, so you could see how sharp this lens is. So then it was on to some of the surrounding buildings. This wasn't too far from the ship, and also some churches. And at this point, I had on the 14 to 30. And then I noticed this shot of one of my favorite people, a statue of Winston Churchill. It's huge, this statue. He was a big man, but not that big. And then I saw a church, one of my favorite subjects, and this is the Presbyterian Church of St. David. And here's another shot from the front. This is with the 14 to 30. And there were some homeless people sitting on the step there. And here's another church right around the corner. And this was at 23 millimeters. Again, the sky was white. It would have been a lot nicer if there were some clouds. And here is my final church picture on this trip. It's the United Church of Canada, St. Matthew's, and just shot the door. Okay, now on my way back to the ship, I noticed this little restaurant with outdoor seating. And now the rest of the pictures we're going to see are from the final 2 days on the ship. Actually, I believe I shot these in just one day. And uh, like I said before in a previous video, you're on a ship, you take a lot of pictures in the ports, but you also spend a lot of time on the ship. And as a photographer, I love to take pictures, so that's what I do, even on the ship. Now, you will notice some of these here, I had one shot in black and white. And then when I shot all these in black and white. Then when I converted them, I converted some in color. A similar shot. And, what do you think? What do you like better, the color or the black and white? I think on a majority of them, I prefer the black and white. Like on this one here, I definitely prefer the black and white, but some of you may like the color. Okay, so we're winding down on this trip, and I hope I didn't bore you with 4 videos on this 9-day cruise. And it does seem that people, at least my subscribers, prefer gear videos, so I'm going to get back to that. In fact, my next video is going to be a comparison of the Mamiya C220, which I recently purchased, and compare it to the Yashica 12, another TLR. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Do you like these color images or do you prefer the black and white? Like I said, on a lot of them, I prefer the black and white, but I've always loved black and white photography. And I'm going to be shooting a lot more black and white film in the near future now that I have that Mamiya C220. So again, let me know what you think. If you have any questions or comments on this video, please leave them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And we're going to end this video with a few self-portraits. Well, at least my shadow. And I usually publish a new video every Monday morning and Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So I will talk to you then.